We know the Matt Grizzlicks of the world. We know the Anthony Beauvilliers of the world. We know the Erik Karlssons of the world as that noise continues to intensify. Josh Yohe, right after we put out our episode on Tuesday, decided he is going to provide a report on the latest revolving around Erik Karlsson, saying, quote, if Dubas could, he would trade Karlsson in a heartbeat. And then going on to say that they would obviously have to retain salary. So that is, of course, from Josh Yohe of The Athletic. My question to you here is, any change in the belief that we talked about Tuesday about Karlsson being dealt in the next week or so?
Still no. It would still just be extremely tough to do. As much as Josh Yohe reports that Kyle Dubas would trade Karlsson in a heartbeat. I mean, cool. That's great. He would, ideally, in an ideal world, all your trades happen that quickly because you can come in with the offer and just say, yes, let's make the move. Let's make the trade call. In reality, things just take more time. Again, I don't think he's been asked to waive anything. I don't think he's been approached to waive anything in terms of his no trade clause. Or his full no move, I should say. So Erik Karlsson has the final say in any move. Again, that usually takes a lot longer than just 8 days to kind of make that approach, find a team, organize a deal, make the trade call to the league. Like I said, it took a year for him to get out of San Jose. So 8 days doesn't seem likely still, but I will say it seems more likely than what it did the other day. That's at least a start. It still seems extremely unlikely, but the percentage essentially went from, let's say, 3 to maybe 10. It's still unlikely, but it's definitely more likely.
Yeah, things change a lot during the trade deadline. I mean, yes, it took a year for him to get traded out of San Jose. But at the same time, whenever you get up to the trade deadline, there's always some of these moves that get expedited simply because of that deadline and teams being willing to kind of push over the finish line. I'm not sure that there's going to be a team that willing to push over the finish line for a 34-year-old Erik Karlsson who has struggled in NHL play. Yes, he looked phenomenal at the Four Nations, but I'm not sure a move like this, especially considering that last part that Yohe reported, that the Penguins would have to retain salary, something that Kyle Dubas does not like to do. Those types of negotiations matched with the fact that you mentioned that he has a full no move clause, I think kind of makes this unlikely to happen in the next week. But again, stranger things have happened. Let's go back to last year's trade deadline. Who thought that Tomas Hertl was going to get traded to the Vegas Golden Knights? Nobody. And it happened at the 11th hour. So could that happen? Yes. Is there a non-zero chance that we like to say on this episode or on this podcast? Yes. But I still think that falls in the unlikely category simply because if they're going to retain salary, I feel it's more likely to happen in the summertime because everybody talks about, well, other teams are going to have more cap space, so they'll be more willing to take on Erik Karlsson's 10 or whatever it ends up being. But I think the Penguins will have to retain less salary if they wait till the summer. And that is always Kyle Dubas's, big priority when it comes to getting these big contracts off the books. But this news does do one thing for me. It tells me that he is gone by next season, that the starting game of the 2025-26 season, Erik Karlsson is also unlikely. I think I'll use that word again. Unlikely to be on the Penguins roster.
I can see that. It's going to be another one of those seasons where first day of training camp, everyone looks around and goes, oh, this is a completely different team. Much like it was heading into the 23-24 season last year. I can remember kind of everyone looking around and going, this is a completely new team. I remember talking with Ryan Graves at first. He said, I'm a new guy, but looking around, everyone has the same vibe of there's a lot of new guys here. So everyone was kind of learning each other out. Everyone was kind of getting to know one another on the ice, off the ice, and going through all those motions. Heading into next season, it might be a lot of the same if players like Rickard Rakell, if players like Erik Karlsson, who knows what happens with the goalie situation. If all those changes happen, we could be having another one of those situations. Very much does seem likely that Erik Karlsson is on the move. The Penguins, sure, Kyle Dubas doesn't want to retain. After this season, $2.8 million comes off of the retention books. So There's a little bit of help there. Maybe you just immediately carry that 2.8 or even 3, bump it up a little if you need to get Erik Karlsson out. And like we mentioned, the salary cap is going to go up quite a bit. next season and the season after and the season after that. So suddenly, and that's, I believe, the end of Karlsson's deal.
Yeah, he has 2 years after this one.
Okay, so the last one doesn't matter too much. But over the next two, that salary cap going up even makes $10 million look a bit more appealing. However, he is 34 now. Will be 35, then 36 in the final years of those deals, of that deal. So maybe the Penguins will still have to retain. But with I just missed the names. Not Jack Johnson. That one's still there for another year. But with Jeff Petrie and Riley Smith coming off of the retention books, you'll have that extra flexibility to work with. And then in the last year of that, you will not have Jack Johnson on your buyout book. So a lot of cap space off the roster to work with.
Yeah, the number I'm kind of looking at is 2.5. That's the one that makes the most sense to me, because it's still something you have to swallow as the Pittsburgh Penguins, but at the same time, you're going to have to get a $10 million player in their mid-30s off your books, and $7.5 million for Erik Karlsson looks much more appealing for a lot of other teams around the league. Especially, I understand that yesterday Jim Nill, the general manager of the Stars, said, yeah, we're not in on that. Like, Elliot can speculate, but we're not in on that. But in the summer, it does make some sense, and that does look like a team that would fit Erik Karlsson because the defensive structure is there, like we talked about on Tuesday. But again, 2.5 is the number that, yeah, it stings because you could sign a pretty decent player for 2.5 million, but you could also sign a couple decent players for 7.5 if you get Erik Karlsson off the books for the next couple of seasons.